I want to be able to get the dirt running, you know, like I don't have to spend time trying to recuperate.
That for the video services or whatever.
Like by far for me.
You know?
I've had 3 hours this week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I've done as
they're
much
actually
as
documenting the whole process of the
I'm gonna work on that. I just can't stand
project.
it.
So same company that Ashley
Okay.
worked with.
Just-
Some of the other
because I
videos and
have
things we
bad
have.
knees, so
I would like to call the Tuesday, July 18th, 2023 meeting of the Danville City Council to order. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Ricky Williams Jr.
Present.
Alderman Ed Butler.
Present.
Heidi Wilson.
Present.
Carolyn Wands.
Present.
James Bouchard.
Present.
Mike O'Kane.
Here.
Bob Iverson.
Present.
Mike Poor.
Present.
Rick Streebing.
Here.
Sherry Pickering.
Here.
Eve Ludwig.
Present.
Tricia Teague.
Present.
Robert Williams.
Present.
Darren York.
Here.
John Cooper.
Here.
14 present.
14 present. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum. At this time, we will have the invocation by Reverend Jason Hinton, the pastor at Israel of God's Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Cooper. Please rise.
If you all would bow your heads in prayer with me this afternoon. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for allowing us to be here one more time, allowing us to see another day. We thank you, Lord, for waking us up this morning with the right action of our limbs and the right conception of our minds. We're asking, Lord, this afternoon that you allow us to continue to remember that you have said in your word a long time ago that we must love our neighbor as we love ourselves. I'm asking, Lord, that as decisions are being made this evening, I'm asking, Lord, that we have love in our heart for our community here in Danville. I'm asking, Lord, that we allow that love to be spread from one heart to the other. I'm asking, Lord, that you allow us to make decisions that are sound. I'm asking, Lord, that you allow us to make decisions that are for the betterment of the future of our children here in this community. I'm asking, Lord, that you allow us to not have any envy, hate, or strife in our hearts this evening. But I'm asking, Lord, that whatever may be holding us back, I'm asking that you remove it from us. I'm asking, Lord, that you give us a clean heart so that we might be able to serve thee. I'm asking, Lord, that you allow us to serve one another with love. And I'm asking, Lord, this evening that you allow us to have the best interests of our community at heart. I'm asking, Lord, that you go with this meeting. And I'm asking, Lord, that you allow it to be carried out decent and in order. All these favors and blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Pastor Hinton. Would you like to let us know who you have with us this evening? And then if you would share with us any things you have coming up at the church or in the community you'd like us to know.
Yes, sir. So what's your name, good sir?
My name is Jacob Michael Hinton.
All right. What's your name, good sir?
Joshua Malachi Hinton.
All right, good job, good job. These are my two sons here. Brought my sons with me because, as I said in my prayer, I know we're making decisions for our community, and I hope that we make the best decisions for the future of our community. I have no plans of leaving Danville. Plan to raise my kids in Danville just like I was, and I hope that what we do here this evening allows for a better future for our youth and our community. At the church right now, currently we have some upcoming events with some of our sister churches from around our connection. Some events that will be here in Danville, some will be traveling to. We have a mission trip going to Port Huron, Michigan in a couple weeks. Then we also have a vacation Bible school week that'll be coming up in August as well. Fortunately, I'm able to work at the Boys and Girls Club, and I love it there. I know our mayor loved it there when he was there as well. We get to impact a lot of youth in our community. I know we have an event coming up here in 2 weeks that'll be over in Fair Oaks. That'll be partnered with the Survivor Resource Center. We also have the 250-plus haircut event that will be coming up the first Saturday in August. And again, we just hope to reach out to the youth of our community and show them that we're here for a light for them. To guide them to a better place. So I appreciate you all allowing us to be here this evening. I got to go home and cook dinner for the boys because my wife abandoned me. My daughter went on another girls' trip. So me and my boys are going to try to find us a little boys' trip to do this weekend as well. So again, I appreciate you all, and my prayers are with you all.
Thank you, Pastor Hinton. Thank you, gentlemen.
Did you want to tell them have a good day?
Have a good day.
You too, baby.
I hope I see you all again soon.
Aw, come back anytime.
There's a future alderman or mayor.
That's right. That's right.
One's a little shy, the other one is.
Believe it or not, I was actually one shy myself, so you never know. They might surprise you and switch it around. You have the agenda for the evening. Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. I do not have any proclamations for
Excuse
you.
me, Mayor. We
Yes.
need to approve the minutes.
Oh, gosh. I'm telling you, I'm skipping a whole bunch of things this evening. Last time I got the invocation and the pledge in the wrong order, and this time this. Reading is fundamental. Yes, you have before you the minutes of the July 5th meeting. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Now on to my report. I do not have any proclamations for you, and there are no board, committee, or personnel appointments. Are there any reports of boards, agencies, or commissions this evening?
Yes, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to the mayor and the council members as well as the department heads for their support Community Day. It was really a good time. So thank you all.
I just want to commend Administrator French and her team and the committees for doing such a good job, considering that it was a switch of event after a switch of venue after so many years. We had a really good crowd, and a lot of people seem to enjoy that even more. So we're assessing whether or not it should stay in Temple Plaza for next year. So we've got some time to take a look into that. But thank you again, Administrator, for all the good work y'all did. Thank you. You're welcome. Are there any other reports of boards, agencies, or commissions? Seeing none, I do have an item of information for you tonight. I would like to begin with a presentation from RJN Group, a sanitary sewer assessment and rehabilitation program. And I would like to introduce Sam Cole, our city engineer, and Eric Childers, our assistant city engineer, who will introduce the team that's presenting.
Yes, so RJN Group, for those of you that aren't familiar, with the city started working with them back in 2020. They are experts in the wastewater field, certainly specialize in assessment of sanitary sewers and developing rehabilitation programs for communities all over the country. We have, our involvement with that has certainly expanded in the last few years, so we wanted to provide you with an update. And that being said, I guess I will let them introduce themselves, and they can go through, basically provide project updates, and then I'll follow just kind of an update of the status of our sewer system overall. So.
Good evening, everybody. Certainly happy to be here today and talk to you a little bit about your sewers. Isn't necessarily the most exciting topic, we realize that, but obviously it's a very important city asset and certainly something that we think it's very important for you to be aware of the things that we found and kind of what we're looking at for the future for things to rehabilitate and and improve the city infrastructure. So we got about 20 minutes or so that we're going to present some things, what we found, kind of what the plan is going from here. Certainly, we'll have some time at the end for questions, but certainly if you have some questions during it, we want to make sure that you feel comfortable with the information we're presenting. So feel free to, to ask questions as we go along here. So I got three of us here today. I'm a senior vice president with RJN. We got Jan Gallen, who's also with us, who's kind of our main person working with Danville on this one, and also kind of focusing more on the improvements that we're going to make in terms of the rehabilitation of the system. And then Marissa Villafuerte is also here. She's also one of our project managers that focuses more on the assessment side of it. So she's going to do quite a bit of the presentation because she was very involved in what we evaluated here. Not going to touch much on this, but a little bit, about us. As they said, we're kind of a specialist firm focused on underground infrastructure, primarily sewer systems. We have, we're headquartered in the Chicago area, also have an office in St. Louis, quite a bit of work in Central Illinois. We have projects with Urbana, Bloomington, Peoria, Effingham, amongst some others too. So certainly, and an area that we definitely focus on going forward. So why do we look at this stuff? What we're looking for, obviously aging infrastructure. Sewers are not like wine, they don't get better with age. So certainly those are things that, that you want to look at. Obviously seeing sewer overflows and basement backups. Nobody enjoys having sewage in their basement. Anybody that's experienced that. I don't know if I got into this because I experienced it a lot as a child, but I did. That's why I got into the field, I don't know, but certainly that's never fun. And obviously, you're always being reactive and doing maintenance, but if you can be more proactive in trying to fix things, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the costs and, and some of the things that we found. And if you have a sewer that you can line, basically, do a trenchless construction and just put something inside and rehabilitate that way, you're maybe talking $40, $50 a foot. If you're having to replace it, Now you're like 10 times the cost. So you certainly want to find things before the sewers collapse and they're causing issues so that you can do it at a much lower cost. So obviously that's one of the things that we're looking at here today as well. That there's some spots, and we'll talk about that you have to dig. But you know, a lot of it we can be done trenchless, which much easier construction and much lower cost. Let me just, yeah, so I think those are the main reasons. I'll have Marissa kind of get into specifically what we're focusing on for the village. So Marissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everybody. So I'll go a little bit in more detail about the city of Danville specifics and as far as the background and the objectives go and as far as the program. So as far as the background for the city, they identified specific areas within the city in which they had concerns with sanitary sewer overflows, basin backups, and also areas where they were planning improvements on. So it was important to understand how the underground infrastructure looked like, specifically the sewers. As far as the areas that were selected, there's a red area right about here. That was the Jackson Street area that was started in 2020. And then there's the yellow outlined areas. There's 5 different areas. They'll split up into 4. Those study areas were started in 2021 and continued into 2022. Overall, the Jackson Street area basin is about 1% of the total length of the sanitary sewer system, while the other areas are about 21% of the total sewer system. So just to get a sense of understanding of the size compared to the entire system. The objectives with this was to, 1, understand what the capacity of the sewer was, identify what design life they had, 2, reduce the rainwater and any extra flow that was going into the system, which was causing the overflows, and then beyond that, not only finding what was wrong, but also developing recommendations and improvements for a multi-year phase plan. So what we started with was assessing the sewers, and the first thing that we did was to complete flow monitoring within the areas. So dry weather flow in sewer is that flow that is normal usage, so from toilets, bathrooms, sinks, all of that is normal flow within the sewer, which is also considered dry weather flow. But during rain events, there's all this extra flow that gets into the sewer from leaks and cracks in the system. It's not perfectly sealed. So what happens is that typically sewers are designed to handle 4 times dry weather flow. But when we monitored the flow within the city of Danville, we identified that during a rain event where about 1.22 inches fell within an hour, which is about a 1 hour recurrence, it was 16 times the normal sanitary sewer flow. So what we found was that the city of Danville sewers could not convey the capacity of regular flow. Because it should be around 4 times, but it was at around 16 times the flow. So along with that, what we did is we did 3 different type of assessments. So that's smoke testing, manhole inspection, and CCTV inspection in order to assess the entire sewer system. I'll go through a little bit in detail about what these inspections entail and also what we found. With smoke testing, what it basically is in essence is we blow smoke using large fans through the sewer and then identify where the leaks are coming up from the surface. So wherever the smoke escapes from the surface, whether that could be a service lateral, a downspout, a structure, that means there's a leak into the sewer. So what we found, and some of the major defects that I have there are some of the photos. Just under 200 structures that we found smoke testing, 24 smoking storm inlets. Storm inlets are not supposed to smoke. Then we also found about 30 locations where the main line, the gravity sewer, was smoking from the surface. So that was on the public sector side. But not only do we identify public sector defects, we also identify defects on the private sector side. So here's a couple of the photos from there. We identified smoking services, laterals, we identified downspout smoking, we also identified defective clean-out caps. So there's a variety of type of defects where we see the smoke and thus those defects. The second inspection that we did was manhole inspection. So what basically it is we open up the structure, we open up the cover where we can access it, and we look inside, use cameras, photos, videos to assess the condition of what the structure looks like. Overall, we inspected about 800 different manholes. Of those, we identified that 90% of them needed improvement. I have a couple photos up there that you can see some of the major defects from active water coming through, deteriorated chimneys. On the left-hand side, there's an offset frame. Things that's significant, we do send to the city immediately because that also is a safety concern right away. The third inspection is CCTV, so it's basically a camera on a robot that gets put into the sewer and travels along the line to then identify the defects structurally. So what we found is a lot of different type of defects, from deformities, offset sewers, broken services. In some cases, like the deformity in the offset sewers, those are significant repairs and they need to be dug up. They can't be rehabilitated trenchlessly. So we identified about in total 50 point repairs, and we identified about 60% of the sewers that needed improvements. On the top side there, you can see just a map showing the level of severity of the sewers, green being good, red being bad. So there's a whole combination of bad and good sewers within this area that you see here. Lastly, one of the benefits of also assessing the system was mapping improvements. We identified just under 300 different improvements to the GIS. Because we're accessing and identifying the locations of all these structures, this is an added benefit to the city of Danville so that it helps operations crews later on find structures in the future more easily. Finally, we have a summary of all the results of our defects. So just so you're aware, the assessments that we did are primarily focused on the public sector. We assessed the mainline sewer mainly, but there's a lot of private sector defects that we didn't find, and that was because usually there are other inspections like lateral televising, building inspections where you get into the building, you assess externally all the properties. There's a lot of other inspections that we didn't complete on this since we were focusing on the public sector, but just so they are aware. But we found a lot on the public sector, so it's important to focus there first. So how do we take all these defects we found and then lead it to a plan? Well, on the public sector side, what we did with our sewers and manholes is that we rated them from low, medium, and high risk. And then from that, we identified that those that were in medium and high risk had the biggest need for improvement and repair. And with that, we developed a multi-phase rehabilitation plan. On the private sector side, we identified a lot of different defects, but unfortunately, it's a very high cost to the residents and even to the city to try to repair all of those. So what we did is we listed out easy fixes, clean out caps, downspouts, window wells, and then we provided that list to the city in a comprehensive report. And then from here, I'll pass it on to Jan.
Thank you, Marissa. Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to touch base quickly on what are our rehabilitation methods. Without getting too much in detail, I think the most important thing is we were always trying to prioritize trenchless technology when we can, because obviously it's much more cost effective. So here you have a couple of pictures of, before and after. So this is a clay pipe that is being lined with a CIPP liner. We call that cure in place pipe. And here is a lateral connection that uses the same technology, and we call that a T-liner because of the shape of it, and being rehabilitated this way, bringing back structural integrity. And up there, here you have a manhole. This is an old brick manhole, and it's being cementitious lined. So all of this was done without digging or anything, and you can save costs doing it this way. But unfortunately, sometimes reality is reality, and you have those sewers that are such in a bad shape, like here, for example, that now you have to dig and replace the sewer with a new PVC pipe connected with some coupling on each side of the existing sewer. And to the right, you can see a manhole adjustment. So in that case, you have the upper part of the manhole that's so deteriorated that you have to replace it. We also install what we call an external chimney seal, that black rubber material that would prevent from further infiltration into the system. So like we mentioned earlier, the first program we did was for the Jackson Street Basin. We just completed that program. You can see here in red, difficult to see, but that was all the pond repairs. This was only 1% of the sanitary system, as mentioned before, but we still completed 10 pond repairs, 7,000 feet of sewer lining, 130 sewer connection were repaired, 45 manholes were rehabilitated. And this was a total construction cost for the overall project around just under 1.3 million. So what did we get after that? We kind of touched base on this earlier, but we improved the structural integrity of the sanitary system. And we can say that we, in average, add 30 to 50% of design life, depending on the method we're going to be using. Another important thing, obviously, is to reduce the groundwater and rainwater getting into that system. And typically with those rehab sewer system program, we're going to reduce it to like 15–20%. It's not a lot, but it's still a lot of flow being removed from the system that you won't have to handle then at the wastewater treatment plant. So that was 2020, and then the city decided to move into that larger, all those yellow area that cover about 20% of the system. Same thing then the first area, they knew that there was some issue, so we were expecting some defect there, and we find a significant numbers of defects. And as the list mentioned, there are 50 pond repairs, 100,000 feet of sewer lining, 1,500 sewer connection needs to be repaired, and 750 manholes needs to be rehabbed in those yellows area. Couple example of defects we find. This is the top photo of one of the manhole we inspected, and this is looking down in the manhole. As you can see, that does not look great. It's a very advanced stage of corrosion, and this one could actually collapse. We could potentially rehab it, but most likely it's going to have to be replaced. Couple of pictures of sewers here that are in a bad shape. So you see that big void over there. Here it's totally deformed. We cannot install a liner here. We're going to have to dig to replace part of the pipe. So here's the overall cost of what was estimated in the public sector. So that does not include the private sector. This is all the work that needs to be done within the right-of-way. So total estimated cost of 25 million, including 5 million for the manhole rehabilitation and 20 million for the mainline rehab. That include 2 million of pond repairs, 12 million of sewer lining, and 6 million of sewer connection. So it's not cheap, obviously, to repair all those defects. Considering the rehab cost and all the other investigation data, flow metering data, and other criteria, future development in the city, age of the sewers, and so on, we sat down with Sam and Eric and come up with a 5-phase rehab plan. Each phase are ranging between 3 and 7 million. Phase 1 and 2 are actually, here is phase 1 and phase 2, are around 7 and 6 million, which would cover more than 50% of the overall work that would need to be done. So there is funding available for this type of project, and Mike will be talking about this in the future slide.
So just a couple things to kind of wrap up here. Obviously, this is significant cost. Certainly realize that. So there are some funding options that are out there. Probably the main one is from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, better known as the Infrastructure Bill, that Congress passed last year. The funds come locally to the state through the Illinois EPA State Revolving Fund, which is something the city has used before. But they've changed it around a little bit in terms of some special programs that are there that the city is eligible for. The low interest rate is pretty standard in terms of that. Currently with the new area, it's 1.84, which considering where things have been recently, that's a pretty good one. It's possible you can request generally smaller communities that are generally 25,000 and less to get a special rate. You can certainly request, you're a little bit larger than that, but you could still request it to see if you get that lower rate. It'd certainly be worth at least asking because you're pretty close to it. So that's there. The biggest thing is the principal forgiveness. And basically, if you're below the average income for the state, you're eligible for principal forgiveness on it. The exact amount can vary, somewhere around 25% or whatever. It's gonna be less than half. We know that for sure. And exactly where it's going to be in there can vary, depending a little bit on how much money they have and so forth that's out there. But certainly that is something that is directly part of this program and part of, again, focused on the communities that need it the most. That's really there. The other thing they have added is a longer-term loan option. Typically, it's been 20 years. You do have the option to go all the way to 30 years if you want to within that. So basically, you can have that low interest rate, just spread out payments over a longer period of time to give the city a little bit more flexibility of how you would cover the cost of that going forward. In terms of the next steps, I think our biggest recommendation is submit a project plan to the state. It's about 20 grand to complete. A lot of that's been done already because we've got the plan already there, and we kind of showed you the map. Obviously, it can be adjusted. There's a lot of forms and other paperwork, financial paperwork, other things that still need to be filled out for that. But the general plan itself is there. From that, you see the general loan terms to get an idea. It wouldn't necessarily be specific until you have a specific project that you know is going to cost exactly a certain amount. But certainly give you the general terms, what kind of forgiveness they're giving you, whether or not you're eligible for the lower interest rate, things like that, you can find out from submitting that. And then you're not committed to anything. You can submit this, and if you decide we don't like this, we don't want to move forward with it, you don't have to do it. It's just you kind of know where things stand, and you can always modify the plan. I mean, one of the things with fixing sewers, we kind of laid this out, but you can carve it in different pieces. How many sewers you line. As long as you do a large enough piece, and these are definitely large enough, that you get a good, in terms of your unit cost from the contractor and so forth. If you do too small of a piece, your cost per foot might be much higher. But there's flexibility within that you can do in terms of where that goes, and that can be modified as well. You don't have to follow the plan you submitted exactly. But this would give you a better feel of really where the numbers are at going forward. And then at some point you can start the design finish the project. There's a couple ways you can go. One of it, you can start shorter term, so everything's ready. Once the loan's approved, you can get going on that first project, quickly and move things forward. The other option is kind of wait till next year, get the project plan approved, and kind of see where everything is at and where you're going. Either one of them works. The only real push for this, and really that goes for that first part anyways about the project plan, is there are other communities asking for money on this. You're not alone. The issues you have you're not alone on that either. All communities are dealing with different problems that they all have. So you don't want to wait too long because this money and the forgiveness and so forth, there's a limited amount there. So that's something there. That's what the timing and kind of push is a little bit more of what. Of the things that are out there. And then obviously when you actually have that first project and you get your loan application for a specific project, then you get the specific loan terms from the state, exactly what the numbers are. But again, you have a good feel for that and can plan with it just from the project plan going forward. And then obviously there's future investigations exactly what the plan is long-term in other parts of the city. As we mentioned, these were areas that we knew were higher level of risk, some of the stuff that we did with staff in terms of where we focused or where we knew the biggest needs were. But obviously, there's other parts of the city as well. So that kind of opened up to questions for any of us or any part of what we presented.
You say you represent several cities, right? How do we compare?
I think you're pretty typical for a city that hasn't done much in the way of improvements, and there are some that went through improvements maybe 30 years ago that did some stuff. There were some permits, particularly in the Chicago area. There were some, the district up there made them do it, so they did some improvements then. So then a lot of their thing is more on the private side, but in terms of where your sewers, considering their age, it's pretty typical.
How many communities our size are you doing? Comparable or?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly some that are comparable. I mean, we're doing probably the two that are directly comparable are actually, in terms of size, are Clinton, Iowa, and Burlington, Iowa. We've done work for each of them that are both around 30,000 things. Obviously, Effingham's a little smaller than you. Bloomington and Peoria and Champaign-Urbana are a little bit larger, but, it's certainly similar, somewhat similar in terms of age of infrastructure and so forth.
But everybody's dealing with an aging.
Yeah, and some of them are even more. I mean, one event you do have Clinton and Burlington have spent even more money because they had a lot of combined sewers. So they've been, like Burlington's been separating. They've been spending a significant amount of money for 25 years that they've been doing work on. So there are communities that actually are worse than you, believe it or not, too. So.
Question for the mayor. I guess you, last council, didn't you pass a sewer fee? I mean, did you pass a sewer fee?
Last council, do you mean last council meeting?
No, during the last 4 years.
Yes, we did.
So how much can that apply to this, or does it apply to this, or?
Well, Sam is gonna show longer-term projections for the entire city. Yes, Vice Mayor Teague, go ahead.
I have two questions. One is, what's the lifespan of the trenchless repair?
So the trenchless repairs are generally expected to be 50 years or so. That's the typical life of them. I mean, I say expected. Sewer lining started a little bit in the 80s. Some of it wasn't very good, and some of it didn't last that long. But the stuff in the 90s, they kind of perfected a little bit better. But again, it's only been 30 years. So, generally the things that were done 25, 30 years ago are still in pretty good shape. So expected. There's hope that it's more than that. Don't want to promise that it'll be a full 100 years, but there's fair level of confidence it'll be at least 50. Manholes are a little bit less. They can generally be more, because they get more, especially manholes that are in the road, because there's more truck traffic and some other things, so you can certainly have impact on that. So that might be more 30 years or so.
Okay. And then the portions that can't have trenchless repair and need to be replaced, what would that lifespan be?
Generally, those will be about the same, because what we would do with that is, again, we'll just replace the section that has to be replaced, and you do that before you line it, and then you line the whole sewer in addition to that. So basically, ultimately, it'd be the same. It should be the same life of that. It's got to be done right. There's always risk when you're digging something, that if you don't properly bed the ground underneath it, that it can collapse or shift or adjust and something like that. So you've got to make sure that the construction's got to be done correctly, and there's standards of what they're supposed to do with that. But certainly, as long as that doesn't happen, then it should have the same lifespan.
Okay. And then my other question is probably for Sam, which is, do we have a copy of this presentation?
That's the one.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Alderman Williams.
What would be the estimate time to complete a project like this for Danville?
Well, what we're kind of showing there is the kind of a 5-year plan, or a 5-phase plan. We're talking about 5 years, more of a 5-phase plan. I would say for each of those, you're probably talking about a good 12 to 18 months, wouldn't you kind of say, Jan? Probably.
The big one, 7 million, would be a year and a half, and then 3-4 million could be done within a year.
And they can't overlap.
Yeah.
They can overlap too, yes.
Yeah, they can, and that's what Joliet, Illinois just went for a loan, actually 7 years ago now. They did a 5-year plan about the same size that they did, and those were each in that range.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question as well. Yeah, but that's your group there on Jackson Street there, most of part of the winter, in the sewers, repair?
That was, yeah, I mean, there's a construction, we don't actually do the construction ourselves, so it's the construction team doing that, but that was our design, and, you know, and we're involved with the making sure the construction's being done correctly.
Yeah, okay, and then plus I'm trying to understand the yellow areas. Are those yellow areas just pertaining to the Jackson Street? I mean, have you been through the rest of the city, or is that our job? I mean, that might be for Cole, I don't know.
Yeah, so as I said, the Jackson Street was a specific area that we agreed to look at first, and then we want to do a larger one, so we did a little over 20% of that. There was those yellow areas. That was in discussions with city staff of just areas where there's, you know, specific concerns or, you know, higher risk or historic information or other things that was kind of based on that, or projects coming up. They want, in some cases, you know, for instance, we're actually, a current project we're doing, you might see us in the downtown area doing some inspections down here, because there's gonna be some construction work being done down here. You wanna fix your underground infrastructure before you do the surface. You don't wanna, you don't wanna replace the streets and then have to dig the streets up to replace the sewers later. That's certainly not a good way to spend the community's money, so.
And so those homes that y'all done your smoke in those people's yard, I know there was some smoke coming out of folks' yard.
Mm-hmm.
You also repaired those lines going to their homes, or
so
how did that work?
So we have done that in the past. With this one, all that we're doing with the construction that we're doing is replacing the connection where the residents are connecting to the sewer. So we're fixing that. The sewers are the residents' responsibility with that. You can do that. We've had some communities that have required it, done some cost sharing. That's an option that's out there. Obviously, that's an additional cost. Generally, with communities we've worked with, we've avoided that. The only ones that have really focused a lot on that have been ones that have had, we have communities that I've worked with that have 30 or 40 times during wet weather. So again, your 16 sounds bad, and it's not good. It's something you want to repair, but I've seen much worse than that as well. And so there are some communities that have had to deal with all of that too. Generally, on the private side, we only have you fix the easy stuff. So if your downspouts directly connect to the sewers, you disconnect it. You need a new cleanout cap. You need a cover on your window well. They're all things you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever, and it costs $100 or whatever to do that. And that's generally what we've done on the private side, and usually left it there. If you have an area that you still have problems with after you fix the public side, if you fix your own sewers, you need to go deeper, then you can look at that. And again, communities that we've worked with before that are now you start getting into the thousands of dollars of repairs. There's been cost sharing, not to put that on just on a resident is not, there's been other things there. And we've done programs like that too, but we're not, that's not anywhere in the current plan for Danville, is to focus on the public system only, the sewers and the manholes that the city owns and is responsible for.
Yes. Alderman Butler, did you have any more questions?
Yes, I had one more. Yeah, because I noticed, during the winter, I went that way every day, to schools there from North Ridge on down to English Street. And you said that project was $1.3 million just for that area. And so I also have an issue that would, in order for us to get the rest of it done in those green areas, that we would have to apply for a loan. Is that what you're saying? It's an option.
I'm not saying you have to. It's just we wanted to let you know of some other options for funding that the city could consider. I mean, that's our job as the engineers, is to give you information for you guys to make the decisions of where you're going. That's all our responsibility is to give you the information as much as we can to help you make those decisions.
Alderman O'Kane.
Okay, are there any areas with major where we have to take like the whole street for 1,000 feet or something like that and replace it all?
Did we have any of those? No. I think they were all individual spots. Yeah.
And are there any areas that, as you look at it, we should rework it and send the sewer directions in other directions so that it's more efficient and it takes care of the future, the way where the city's moving to. I know that we've done that with lift stations and stuff like that.
I can comment on that a little bit.
There are some, but I think it's better to have your own staff knows that in better detail than I do.
But nothing in the areas that you're concentrated on.
Yeah, within our area, we had some portion of the system that we would look at rerouting to make it more efficient because it was built out on top of each other. So yes, they would be some of that, but they would be separate projects.
Separate projects?
Yes, because you would have to install like a new pipe for, you know, a couple thousand feet. You know, it would be a different project than a sewer rehab project.
Sometimes, one thing to keep in mind on some of that stuff too is there's contractors that specialize in certain things too. So if you used to have a small section of new pipe, they'll do it, but they may charge you 3 times as much as somebody else might charge you that specializes in that kind of work. So you're better off doing that as part of a separate project.
Chairman.
Thank you for the presentation. I know we've been talking about this for years and years and years. Went from a 1,000-year replacement program to a couple 100-year replacement program, but that's one of the reasons for the fees and different things.
80 years.
And a lot of the reasons for the smoke was to find all the illegal taps into the sanitary sewer by residents, stormwater going into the sanitary sewer system and things, because that, of course, we have to have all that corrected. There's some set date, isn't there, a year? Or we just have to be compliant, lining storm sewers, different things to keep from going into sanitary, any infiltration into the sanitary system. But can you line a manhole, or does that have to be completely reconstructed?
Most manholes you can line. It's actually pretty rare that you got that. Jan showed you a picture of one that probably does, but typically it's less than 5%, and oftentimes less than 1% you actually have to replace. Manholes are generally one that you can line those as well. Sometimes it depends on how deep. Sometimes if they're really shallow, it's sometimes even easier just to replace them.
Right. And then is there a maximum or a minimum size line you can, or sewer you can line?
There's standard in terms of sewers themselves. There's standard.
I mean the sanitary.
Yeah, in terms of there's standards in terms of how far the manholes are apart, and they can do. You can generally it's never more than 400 feet because you need to jet them and clean them out if there's plugged up and whatever, and so they can line that far. They can even line farther than that. Sometimes they'll even line it through a manhole and then kind of cut it out. But certainly there's nothing there. That can happen more on a force main. We have a pump station that's pumping that, and that doesn't have manholes, and so if those are really long, sometimes there can be some, you may have to split it up in terms of how you're lining that. But
and if you're asking about sizes, there's no limitation.
There's no limitation.
Yeah,
pretty much a big sock you're sticking in and letting it inflate.
The city of Danville is not big enough that you would have any limitation.
Yeah, if you start dealing with sewers that are 6 feet in diameter or more, then sometimes there's different methods, and where a person can actually get in and do it, that you can do different things.
Storm sewers. Yeah, we have storm sewers that big.
Yeah, and there are technologies out there that at certain size that the lining technique they were talking about may not be the most cost effective at a certain point, but any of it can be rehabbed. There's things out there to fix that.
And this will be similar. I mean, the lining process similar to what they did when the water company relined the force mains and all the mains on Vermilion and things rather than digging up. Pretty much the same basic principle, isn't it, Sam?
Similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they did, I don't know how many miles of water line, the big mains, and lined those, but, okay, thank you.
Any further questions for our consultants? This time I'll turn it over to City Engineer, Mr. Cole.
Okay. All right, so in addition to, besides just giving you the update on the project, I thought I wanted to give you an update on the overall status of our system and how this is playing into costs and strategies, things like that. Just to touch base on, why we selected the basins that we did. We have many years of sewer call information in GIS. In a perfect world, we can look at that and tell where the problem areas are. The issue is they're everywhere. And it's very difficult to look at that and get constructive information out of it. So there are a few factors, areas where we have historic sanitary sewer overflows, like sewage boiling out of the ground or some, and then we wanted to make sure that we got ahead of certain projects we're doing where either we knew development was taking place and we wanted to make sure we had adequate capacity or working towards having adequate capacity, or we were going to replace a pump station. We wanted to assess all of the area that drains to that pump station so that we're not overbuilding it and pumping water that is just storm water and things like that. So that's a little bit of a high-level overview of why we picked what we did. So overall, the city of Danville owns approximately 179 miles, just under 1 million feet of gravity sewers. We're talking life expectancy. I think we ballpark that at an 80-year life. But like they were saying, if you intervene before you're getting towards the end of that, you can extend a life, without digging those up. But, construction to failure, I mean, there's sewers out there older than that. There's sewers out there younger than that need replaced already. We have roughly 3,795 manholes in our system. And if we had an 80-year life, that means we're replacing 1.25% of our system annually. That's 2.2 miles of gravity sewers that need replaced on an 80-year life cycle. Force mains, we have roughly 12 miles, and the force main is the pipe that leaves a pump station and pumps sewage until it gets to a point where it can discharge to a gravity sewer. We estimate a 50-year life on those. That means we need to replace about 1/4 of a mile per year for 2% of the system. We have 30 pump stations with a roughly 30-year life expectancy before they need major rehab. And that means we have to replace an average of 1 pump station a year, or 3.33% of our system. So what's our assessment status? Well, they talked about this. So we own, just under 1 million feet of sewers, approximately 1 million feet. The Jackson Basin was roughly 1%. The most recent sanitary sewer assessments were 20 to 21%. So we've assessed roughly 1/5, just over 1/5 of our sanitary sewer system. And the force mains we evaluate on a case-by-case basis with reconstruction of the pump stations. That's when those are assessed. We're not necessarily doing as they're nearing their life expectancy, or we're doing improvements there, we look into those items. So all of this basically adds up to, we've got a lot of projects to do in our community. Several years ago, or back in, I guess it was 2020, when we were looking at the sewer rates, we put together an estimated 5-year capital plan. Some of that has been completed. Some of this has been, I've updated this to reflect kind of current projects. All in, this is our 5-year estimate. So if you took what RJN Group has presented, $25 million in those projects, we add pump stations and other projects that we need to do, plus other smaller basin rehabs and lining projects. In theory, we need $38 million to get that done in over 5 years, if that's when we want to complete it. So that's an average annual need of $7.6 million. So this is, and I'd like to say that this is extremely technical. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of technical information and expertise that went into creating this plan for the 20% that we've assessed, right? And all the pump stations that we've assessed. But we've got to think, what's the rest of the city like? How do we get through the rest of all of this too? So we've assessed, basically on our pump stations, we have an estimated backlog of $10 million in pump station projects, or replacement of gravity sewers to eliminate pump stations that are needed to be replaced, or various things there. The gravity sewers, I'm estimating a backlog of $125 million. And that's on the basis that we have assessed 20% of our system, and the estimated rehab cost is $25 million. So I'm simply saying, if everything else is in roughly the same average condition, we would estimate that we have $125 million worth of work out there in the system. That does not, so basically that would represent, if we were able to assess the whole system and we needed that level of investment, that represents rehabilitation of 50 to 60% of the entire sewer system. And if we did this over 25 years, that's 2% of the system per year. Remember, we were saying the baseline is 1.25%, kind of as a minimum that we need to be targeting. So that number, yes, it's larger than that. It's not like a crazy huge number, in the way of rehab, I guess, especially given that we've got a large backlog in deferred maintenance. Current funding levels for sanitary sewers, we have in this current fiscal year $2.217 million in the line item allocated for sanitary sewer infrastructure improvements. So just want to remind you, that fund is the Storm and Sanitary Sewer Fund. We're focusing on the sanitary sewer piece of this today, and the portion of that fund that's allocated to sanitary sewers and the sanitary sewer project needs. So I think the question is valid that, what about the 2020 Fund 402 changes? Wasn't this supposed to cover all this? How did we get here? So back when we were going through that process, I put together this checklist that was part of the presentation. It talks about the things that the proposed changes in funding and revenue would do for Fund 402, the Storm and Sanitary Sewer Fund. We're going to be able to continue doing basic operational needs, meet the 5-year estimated capital needs in pump stations. It funds our sewer smoke testing and flow monitoring and assessments. It funds annual need for sewer lining replacements and rehab projects. And remember, that's based on that smaller percentage, not based on this updated backlog. Funds maintenance and of remote easements and right-of-ways, supports replacements of equipment such as Vector trucks and TV trucks. Which has continued to pay dividends. Increased funding for storm sewer maintenance. It funded sanitary sewer replacement at the estimated level of annual need, right? 1/80th of the system. It leveled rates between commercial and industrial and residential users, created a minimum monthly charge for all users. And, at the time this was presented, there was a box that said sufficient annual increases to cover the cost of inflation and customer population loss. That's not accurate anymore, for sure, for a couple of reasons. When this was presented, I was proposing a 5% annual increase to this to reflect normal costs of inflation in construction, plus to offset a little bit of population loss factor in there. City Council approved roughly a 3% annual increase, and as you all know, inflation's vastly different than historic levels. One of the next checkbox is allows for annual infrastructure investments to keep pace with asset life expectancy. Yes, that was, the target, provided inflation didn't change. It funded, created a self-supporting enterprise fund, and you'll notice at the very bottom, under current and future, it did not address decades of deferred maintenance and need. So we were building a financial model based on average life expectancies, not based on our actual conditions, because we didn't know what those were. We were saying this is the absolute minimum that we can do to get started and start to do systematic replacements, not eat through a backlog that's there. So that's what we're presenting to you today, is our estimate of what that backlog is. So just a little bit of overview for you all, just to talk about inflation and how that's played into this fund in general. As I mentioned, 3% is roughly the annual increase. I think we've done 2 increases, maybe 3 since then. I know implementation of that increase in fee was deferred probably 6 months or so. So that played into this as well. But I'm looking at data from Engineering News Record, and they track construction costs, nationally, and inflation. Basically, I'm presenting to 3 years from July of 2020 to July of 2023. And for project costs that don't involve skilled labor, they're showing basically a 17.4% increase total, over those. For projects involving skilled labor, you're looking at 30.7%. That's about over 10% per year. And then we actually, we wanted to get more specific to like what our actual needs are and the type of projects we're doing. So RJN Group was kind enough to compile. They were actually looking at, Joliet has a history of doing projects like this regularly, and they looked at their bid information for several years. And essentially what they found is that on rehabilitation projects, lining projects, things like that, over the last several years, we've seen an average annual increase of 13%. So that would be, almost 40% over a 3-year period, if that, annualizes. So that's significant. Basically what that's taken is, let's say we had $1 million bucket of money when we approved this. Now we have, because of rate increases, we have $1.1 million, but that same project costs $1.4 million. So we have lost a lot of purchasing power for sure in the ability to do these projects. And the reason I bring that to your attention is because one of the things that Linda Darby said to me, or, when we were going through this thing is, how do we keep from this never happening again? And we have to stay on top of this. We have to stay informed. We have to look at the cost of things and not let it just continue to erode. So I guess that's it for me. And really the reason I bring a lot of this up about the value, like how much money we're bringing in annually, what inflation has done, we simply cannot cash flow these projects. It's not a feasible thing to look at. That's one reason the EPA loan is a great option for us. Basically, and I think we need to charge full steam ahead into these projects. We are not going to escape needing to do, these sewer rehabs, and to have low interest rates, to amortize these costs over many years, and to have the opportunity. On our last project, we were able to get 30% principal forgiveness. There is no guarantee, and none of our planning, do we recommend, counting on principal forgiveness, but certainly that helps our dollar go further and get further down the road before we have to reassess things. So I guess that's all I have on the overview. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I guess I'll just start off. One of the things that I promised you when I became mayor was that even if it was tough, that I would always tell you the truth. And after a couple of years of assessment, unfortunately, the reality is kind of what we thought, and it's as bad as it is in other places too. But unless we have an understanding of where we are and the status of all of our infrastructure, it's hard for us to make plans. And as the consultant showed us, if we are proactive, we can do it for about 20% of the cost that we can to have to replace it, or less. Sometimes it's 10% of what it would be to replace it. So when Sam showed me these numbers, I nearly fell out of my chair, and I'm like, Sam?
He challenged me on that. Didn't we do this with the sewer fee already? So, and I challenged myself. That's why we go back and look at what we said and what we were trying to accomplish and what the basis was.
So anyways, it's just imperative that we have an accurate picture and an accurate understanding of where we are. And this is not, sewers, as they say, are not sexy, but it's one of those things that we have to address, because when your waste doesn't go away, that's a huge problem for everyone, not just in terms of your household, but health and safety for the public as well. That's one of the big reasons why we did the huge project across the lake, right? We were actually getting in, overflows into our drinking water, right? And we just can't have that. You can't have that.
Yeah, and for perspective, that was a $7 million project that affected approximately 4% of our population. So 25, if we were going to do projects at that scale community-wide, you're looking at 25 times that. And that wasn't fixing every sewer out in that area. That was fixing certain components of the sewer system. And they're a very small percentage overall.
Well, I can remember back probably 10 or 15 years ago. Remember, Mike, and we used to, especially out in the East End.
Oh, gee.
Oh, these poor guys were continually going out because the basements were always flooded. Right. We don't have near as much of that anymore. Very, very few.
Yeah.
Well, William Street, all that area.
Yeah, and we still. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we still have, we will continue to have, we've been fortunate the last couple, honestly, we haven't had crazy wet weather. And we will probably have those problems again. We've been getting lucky, with those aspects of that. But, just doing this process of assessment, we are saving ourselves so much heartache and the public so much heartache. We spent, this assessment was not cheap. I think it was 1.7 million roughly to do that. A lot of that is televising cost and cleaning cost, almost $1 million of that. But we have cleaned and televised and done emergency repairs and things like that on 20% of the city's sewers at this point. And that's a huge win. And, assessments that haven't been done in decades. So certainly just knowing that they're free flowing and knowing our problem areas is gonna buy us a lot of improvement.
Well, Mike, what was it? But it was, I'm gonna say 10 years ago when they got that ready to fix something on South Street and they found a big sewer that was deep, they didn't even know existed. So you're still gonna run into things like that, especially on Gilbert Street and some of them other places.
Oh yeah, we'll tell you about one later tonight.
Sewer under the gymnasium?
Yes, sewer under the gymnasium.
This isn't a gym, this is just a multi-story apartment complex, no big deal.
Remember, that was one of my first, as acting mayor, I get a call that there is a manhole under the stage at Garfield School where the kids eat lunch that's collapsing.
Yeah. Well, I can say that I thought I knew, but maybe I didn't, but the one area that you had up over the heights that was all yellowed. Now, anything on the other side of Memorial Bridge, I don't think was ever touched.
Right.
But I believe everything out in the heights was relined.
Yeah.
Probably 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, the sanitary district lined a lot of that, and we still wanted to say, to what extent there are other cross connections and issues and things like that, because that all flows to the Ellsworth Park lift station, which we are estimating we need to spend $2.2 million on. So we still wanted to reassess, have a package, and really go through the city very systematically.
You know where the thing goes over 150 for the walkway?
Yeah.
They about lost that because they had a sewer break and it was probably 50 to 60 foot deep. And the one buttress was almost gone. So they come real close to closing 150. Yeah. That's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Alderman, what questions do you have for Chairman?
Sam, when we do see someone, when we do the televised things and the smoke test and we see illegal taps, what's the process?
Yeah, so we have a long list of items to get through, and we are in the process of basically working with our plumbing inspector to initiate follow-ups. We've done a lot of work in investment in the Jackson Basin, and we want to target that area first because we have those same issues there, and follow up and see that things get fixed. And there are, we notify if there's illegal taps. If it's downspouts and things like that, that's usually fairly easy to take care of. I think our cross connections end up being the most expensive ones. The ones that are very difficult for people to fund are the ones that are like the sewers, just there's smoke coming out of the ground all over the place. Well, that's because the sewer's in very poor condition and the joints are all leaking. We don't necessarily have a means to go force them to do that unless we want to cost share, right? But there are things that we do to mitigate risks within the right of way, at least to make sure that we're not undermining roads. But yeah, we're developing the process there, and knowing that item is 1,000, maybe not 1,000 deep, but it's honestly, it went better than I thought it was going to. The cost is more, but I think the private sewer issues it's honestly smaller than I expected. I feel great that we only have 50-point repairs to do after assessing 20% of the city's sewers. I sleep a lot better at night knowing that we've done that.
And during the televising, how many did we find where utility companies had drilled through our sewer lines running cables and things?
Yeah, we found a few cross floors.
Yeah. And certainly there were a few times that we had, I know your crews identified gas smell in I think a sewer line at one point and had to notify Ameren. That's been I've got to commend them. They are thorough on making sure that we understand emergency situations and get activated to deal with those. So it's a very good. They're very challenging to keep up with. I will say that they are high capacity, and that's good for us though.
You look around when they bore, they do the boring. How many?
Oh yeah.
Different things go through lines.
Well, if you ask them, it's nobody's.
Yeah.
But if you threaten to cut it, somebody shows up real quick.
Well, it was probably 7 or 8 years ago. We had a big party down at the Knights of Columbus, and when they finally come out, that the pipe had been bored through 3 or 4 different times by 3 or 4 different people, and nobody knew about it.
Yep.
We did.
We did. Yeah, we found it out.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right.
We're not asking you for any.
Money available for this?
So I think that the EPA alone is as good a grant money as we're going to find on this at this point. There's really not, to my knowledge, USDA has a similar program, which we don't qualify because of city size for small communities. There's just not, we certainly work with legislators to try to get earmark dollars and other stuff that we can, but it's not necessarily, there's not a grant program that you go after to get. It's not like an 80-20 match when we do road projects and say, hey, we're going to do 20% and we get 80% funding. That just doesn't exist in this realm.
So, but that percentage rate was pretty dang good.
It is, yeah.
And so what you're saying that to that, Sam, what was that, in 2020, 2021, we raised sewer taxes. Did part of that money go toward this 1.3 million or
oh, yes.
the 2 million that?
No, it certainly did. On an annual basis, we're spending, on infrastructure projects, 2.2 million is what's budgeted in this year's fund to do sewer infrastructure projects. Plus there's funding for engineering and assessments and things like that. So we would, in no way would we have been able to do any of this without that increase. We were literally, by the time that we made loan payments for the Northwest Sanitary Sewer Project, we were sitting with a line item in sanitary sewer improvements of like $100,000 or $200,000 a year and no money in engineering and assessments. And it was not doable. So I am grateful for the hardship that you all faced, dealing with that, but it's the path forward, so.
And I can say, Alderman Butler, we took it quite hard with the increase the last time, but it was well deserved. But you also have to realize that when they need a new Vector truck or they need repairs, that also comes out of that as well.
Sewer personnel as well.
And personnel as well.
And
self-funded.
Self-funded, that's what we were after. So it's not coming out of the general fund all the time. We know the money's there. That's why we've done the enterprise funds and everything else.
Yeah, and we've certainly, what I've shown today is there's a gap between where we need to be based on that and where we are. And I think that likely there need to be conversations ongoing about how we get to where we need to be. And there's certainly varying perspectives on how to go about that. I don't have some plan to hand you that's in the back, whatever. I just really wanted to present this and,
well,
we got to chart a path forward.
I would say don't wait too long, and if you're going to look at it, I would try for the loan. I'm telling you that for me personally, that's what I would do.
And I think if that's something that you all are comfortable with, that's what I would say is our best path based on everything we know now. And we can try to build some models, financial models to look at, okay, I want to look beyond this 5-year program, right? We need to look, we don't want to say, hey, we did this 5-year program, now we're broke, and we don't have a plan for the rest. We need to get that whole game plan together. So with your support, we'll certainly start doing that.
Alderman.
Yeah, I think it is imperative. We've got to be proactive. We can't sit on this, and we've got to take an approach like Joliet has done. And this is it's just a rotating process, and we can't stop that because, you can't. It doesn't help to blame somebody for, hey, why are we here? We got to deal with it now, but we can't prevent it from happening again in the future. So we've got to jump on this. And I'm impressed by RJN's, I draw on a blank on that. Their presentation, and yours as well. You've answered all my questions. This is.
Well, Sam, let me ask you this: how much? I know we've talked a lot about sewers and everything, but what about the other water problem that we've got with, rainwater and stuff?
Stormwater. Yeah, so that's a separate. It's within the same fund, separate line items. Certainly, one of the things that we've done to help catch up on that is allocated. Was it $8 million in ARPA funds? $7 million?
Almost 9.
Almost $9 million in ARPA funds towards those projects, and to try to get caught up on, at least start eating through the backlog of projects that were identified in the Stormwater Master Plan. So we're certainly doing that. We're not doing the same type of assessment with that system that we are on the sanitary sewers. Those are generally assessed as part of road rehabilitation projects, or, a lot of those assessments are done with in-house crews as we're mapping things out, because it's a different expertise.
Yeah, because I remember some of the pictures thing we seen a few years back, some of the subdivisions and things, I don't know how anybody would stay in their homes because the mountain or half the hill was gone.
Yeah.
And it was just going to get worse.
Yeah, and we have, one thing I would say that we've done, we've actually mapped the entire storm sewer system. That took from, 3.5 years, basically, of a technician working not full-time, but as much free time as he possibly had, continuing to map things. And we are doing the same for the sanitary sewer system now. We found, almost 300 map updates on 20% of our system. That just goes to show you how inaccurate what we had was. And we're basically revisiting that entire thing. So we'll continue to, honestly, we're just continuing to refine a strategy. We're just in strategy development. At this point, we've got the resources now to fund finding a strategy. And now we're setting the strategy, and we've got to figure out how to implement it.
And I would say a lot of the homeowners actually know, if you ask them, they didn't know anything about it.
Some of them, yeah.
Most of them,
yeah.
Really. I never had, they'll tell you, I never had a clue.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Luckily, it's only like one per block, and that's the guy with the manhole in his yard.
Chairman, one thing that I'm proud of is that you all supported, I believe it was 7 or 8 of the top 10 projects that need done in stormwater will be done over the next 3 years. So we do have the resources set aside for that already, which will make a substantial, the neighborhoods that you don't see that are highlighted with the sewer stuff, a lot of those are the ones that are beginning addressed with the stormwater, because that's what's causing their backups in their basements and their neighborhoods, flooding and things like that.
Right, and we've been fortunate enough to have the stormwater master plan to help us identify the projects and increased funding to support those. We've actually found numerous what I would call public-private partnerships to get some of those done, where, somebody wants to do a project, we have a known stormwater master plan issue there, and we're able to partner with them to help fund some of it, and they do some of the work. And we've gotten several done like that, that may be farther down the list, but certainly we can bring funds to the table and get things done. And that's been, it's been a huge help, so.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Vice Chairman.
You may remember that at the time we were doing the sewer funds, I had some concerns and expressed some opposition to it. And then I came back and tried to stop the annual increase that goes along with it. I've got to say, looking back at it all now, I have to applaud Sam and his crew for finding all the things they did. And they may not have been crazy about the idea when it came up, but I think they're doing a good job in using the money that we granted.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm proud of our team for sure. Yes, Alderman Butler.
Yes, also I'm glad that Straven and Mike brought this up about the sewer problem that was out on the east end. And I don't know if the whole line was repaired. I just don't like doing patchwork.
Right.
So, if we know that area is leaking or what have you on down the line, it might be something else going on.
Oh, it's all leaking.
Yeah, so I don't know if you just done a patchwork, and then now what about the rest of it? Are you gonna just do that patchwork and you're gonna jump somewhere else?
So
I mean, being proactive.
Yeah. So what we are trying to do, and that's, I guess, so we're trying to do this on a drainage basin by drainage basin approach. So what that, and generally, if you look at topography, like the way the land rolls, the sewers follow that land and flow to the low point. So we identify a basin that's having known issues, and we try to figure out all the issues within that basin, rather than just piecemealing something here and piecemealing something there. We try to be systematic. I'm going to tell you that that's going to be really hard on some of our basins that we have not assessed yet and need to, because they are huge and very complex. I mean, probably not for these guys, but complex in Danville terms. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, and I think we've got to get traction on the basics and then figure out really good strategies for those, because they're not they're not slam dunks as far as being easy projects to
Here's a
fund.
good example. We talked about this less than a month ago, Clay Street.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and everybody knows it's
Yeah.
a big problem.
Yeah. I've re-looked at that, just that one little block is closed, and I questioned my sanity like I do regularly. And, yeah. You question my sanity too? Okay, good. Fair enough. But I'm like, surely it can't be that much. No, by the time you look at it and what you have to do, it's well over $1 million project.
Yeah.
And it's, we got to fit it in there somewhere. So it's getting added on the stormwater master plan, and we've got to figure out how to fit that in. But it's really easy for something, I think somebody started calling me the $1 Million Man after I was here a few times. That's nothing anymore. I mean, they're looking, Yates is going to be asking for police cars for $1 million before you know it. So. And anyway, I wanted to add this to, I'm standing up here. Eric he runs the show for our sanitary sewer and stormwater programs.
We know who the brains out.
For those of you that don't know, he doesn't like being front and center necessarily, and I just love the attention. I had 5 brothers, and this is my chance, in the spotlight. But anyway, he makes this stuff happen. He's the one coordinating with RJN Group and with our crews and with others, and making sure that we're moving all these projects forward. He's the reason those are done. So,
Well, Eric, thank you.
Yes, thank
He's the brains and you're the pretty face.
well, he's the brains for sure. I'm not sure the second part's accurate, but.
Well, again, I know this is a tough conversation, but it's important that we have these kind of conversations because you can't operate in the dark. You're not going to make any kind of progress if you do so. Chairman.
And as you said, back when we did this, you were recommending 5%.
Right.
We agreed to 3. Just think what that other 2% would have done.
Right.
Over the years.
Yep. So we'd only been 25% short instead of 31.
Yeah, there you go. Because of increasing costs.
Sam, Eric, thank you guys.
Thank
RJN team, thank you all very much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
So much for 20 minutes, eh?
We're not even a public works yet.
Exactly. On a happier note, just a reminder, we have our next First Friday coming up is a back-to-school bash. There will be groups giving away school supplies. There will be all kinds of activities for the kids, including Touch a Truck. We'll have we'll have police cars. We'll have fire trucks. We will have public works trucks there for the kids to explore and get used to. Also, just want to remind you that the fire station will be using their overhead spray equipment in one area. Last year, many parents were shocked by that, and kids can't resist, so make sure you bring a towel and a change of clothes if you got kiddos. But we hope to see everyone there.
Is the storm sewer okay in that area? They take all the water?
It worked pretty well last year, so hopefully it holds up again, Vice Chairman.
Well, I've got nothing but good response from the luau we had downtown. Everybody really enjoyed it and loved it.
It was a good time.
Yeah.
At this time, Madam Clerk will receive our petitions, communications, and audience comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Did anyone wish to speak this evening? I don't have any audience comment cards.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we have the zoning petition before you. Item 8A is an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for petitioner Gretchen Rolnicki for property 1509 Sherman Street, a zoning petition number 257. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and Ms. Rolnicki is here in the audience if you all should have any questions for her. Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes. Congratulations, Ms. Rolnicki. We appreciate you. You've probably been here longer than you thought, so if you need to go, have a great evening, and thank you for your business.
Yeah, but it was only 20 minutes.
I learned all about sewers.
You have before you this evening the payrolls of July 7th and 14th of 2023. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Chairman Poor?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Streebing?
Yes.
Alderman Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries. You also have before you the vouchers payable of July 11th and 18th of 2023, as well as a special run from July 6th of 2023. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Chairman Strebe?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Pickering?
Yes.
Alderman Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
4.
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries. At this time, we will receive our Public Works Committee report. Chairman Poor.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 11A is a resolution approving the purchase of a rear load refuse truck. Move to dispense reading and ask for your approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
4.
Yes.
Strebing?
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries.
11B is a resolution approving the Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, for program year 2022. Move to dispense reading and ask for your approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate?
I have some
Yes.
questions.
Vice Mayor Teague.
As I was reading the report, one of the things that it says is that the data in the tables isn't correct. So I'm just wanting to understand, so what we see here, is it not accurate? I'm just looking for explanation.
Yeah, so yes, pretty much. So this report is generated through the federal online reporting system.
Oh, gosh.
And it is non-editable.
Gotcha.
So what we actually completed in the program year is oftentimes misrepresented in a negative way. It's usually way less than what we actually did. So what we do is we put together separate Excel sheets, and maybe it's in there, maybe it's not. I had to compress it down to fit it in. It's like a 300-page report. But what we do each year is we add on the activities and tables and explanations as to what got done and what didn't get done. So yes, it is misrepresented, and that HUD has us put that in there to show everybody that.
So do you have a table, not necessarily through the federal software, but of your own that actually has accurate data?
Yeah, so I have a Excel sheet in front of me here. It's just the general overview of what we actually did for projects. If you want me to go over it really quickly, or I can send it to you in email, up to you.
How long is it?
It's very short.
You can go over it.
Okay. Yeah, so for this past program year, we completed 13 home rehabilitations, 2 accessibility modifications, 21 demolitions. The public infrastructure project that was completed last year was South Beard Street, and we spent $569,000 on that project of CDBG dollars. And then items that aren't reflected in that plan are we're going out for the homelessness support grant here, hopefully by next week, for the Danville Rescue Mission. And then total individual families served was 144 families. So those are just the overview of the main projects that we did last year.
And then my other question would be then, does that report, and you can email this, show plan versus actual percentage-wise like this does?
Oh, no. Okay. But I can send you the whole thing, and yeah, go over that. Yeah.
Vice Mayor, did you have any further questions?
I'm trying to get my note to open.
Well, dealing with HUD's a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
Complete, and I'm sorry. Mike and I both know.
Yeah, Heidi.
Heidi.
While Vice Mayor is checking her notes, I want to communicate something. Steve, maybe you'll throw us a bone and put a word about this. Oftentimes, I hear from people and they say, well, Mayor, you spend all this money demolishing houses. Why don't you use that money to then fix the house up instead? So our average cost to demolish a house is between $8,000 and $12,000. So let's say it's around $10,000. You all may remember, Alderman Cooper, I believe you were with us then still, that there was a house on Main Street that we rehabilitated that it cost almost $80,000. So what you're looking at in terms of, so first of all, most of the houses we demolish, unless it's for a project, are not salvageable. However, if they are salvageable, you're usually looking at $50,000+ in order to fix them. And there's just, it's just not possible to do that, to do a rehab. And also, I don't think people would think that that's a wise use of their taxpayer dollars to spend $60,000 to $80,000 for a house that should be torn down and that we can tear down for $10,000. So I just wanted to, because that's a part of this plan and the reports that we do, I just want to help people understand that and why we do. Vice Mayor, were you able to?
Yeah, I pulled them up. I think that those questions have been answered, so thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, and this is for 2022?
Yeah.
You're that far back?
Yeah, so it typically, the program year runs a year prior, and actually, you will always see numbers lower than what you'd expect because we just received our 2023 grant funds yesterday. So,
Okay.
and that plan was.
Some things haven't changed.
And this is ahead of this is about 2 months ahead of when we normally get them.
Yeah, last year we received our funds at the end of August.
I just don't want us to get caught like we did a few years back.
No, we are not.
I can assure you,
had money.
Yeah, after we actually checked that, that's how we started. We are actually $264,000 away from timeliness expenditure, and we haven't even touched a dime in new grant funds.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, we actually, that's why we were able to receive those 2 additional grants, because we had been so successful in the allocation of our funds and our service to our people. So we're staying on it.
You're like Miss Finch, you're busy all the time. Yeah, always work.
Alderman Butler.
Yes, so is there a criteria to receive these funds on here anywhere that I might look up, or he can just send it to me?
Yes, we can. I can have.
Yeah,
okay.
It will not be in that end of the year report. I believe what you're asking. I'll have to make a clarification note for you for each program. Is that what you're asking? Criteria to meet? Yeah, I just have to send a summary to you for that.
So HUD provides us with federal guidelines and income criteria. That's the starting point, and then point allocation, Alderman, based on condition of the home, location, things like that.
Yeah, so, okay, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering? Yes. 14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries.
11C is a resolution authorizing an application to Illinois Housing Development Authority for funds for rehabilitating properties. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval.
Second.
So just to give a quick overview, Logan, can you just give a quick overview?
Yeah, so essentially this is more COVID dollars coming down, trickling down from the federal government to the state level, being IDA. And there are some more guidelines than we're used to seeing behind this program. What we know right now is that the applicant has to show COVID impact. There are income guidelines that qualify each owner-occupied household. If this grant is awarded, we would have to generate our own application process, work write-up process. Something really cool about this grant is that it mandates that all code improvements be made on each residential unit. So smoke detectors, faulty electrical wiring, HVAC, lead abatement, stuff like that. But yeah, the main key points are it's COVID impact and income guidelines and owner-occupied 1 to 4 unit residential units.
Yes, Alderman Butler.
Oh, y'all just want to wait on the question, I guess. I need to. Y'all have a question?
No, yes, sir. That's, I'm calling on you to.
Yeah, okay. Also on this same, the question I had before about required by law, our guidelines is in line with the required by the law.
We use
when we get to start writing our guidelines, is it in line with the law?
It will likely directly mirror what IDA's guidelines are going to be.
Ours are usually exactly the same.
Yeah.
Usually exactly the same, okay. Yeah, if I can get that as well.
This one we don't have yet because they haven't finished putting together all the guidelines. That's why he's like letting you know what we do know.
We're just applying for it right now.
We don't know the final.
Yeah, we're just applying for it. Yeah.
They haven't given those determinations yet. Finally, Alderman.
Okay.
Any further questions? Roll call vote. Oh, sorry, Vice Mayor.
So this grant, they don't have any, the request that we're submitting, there's no plan that's being required to submit with it, correct?
No, they really want to see what your demographics, your income data is. It's a really quite it's a smaller grant application with not a whole lot of narrative behind it. So that leads me to believe that it's all statistical analysis on their end. It's very, very competitive. They want to award 15 municipalities throughout the state. I did attend a webinar and there was 165 individuals from the biggest municipalities. We'll be competitive, but cross your fingers.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
What's the maximum you can apply for?
Yeah, good question. Minimum $1 million request, maximum $5 million.
Excellent.
Thank you. Logan, do you want to remind them what we're requesting?
Yeah, so there's a nice balance here. I don't want to ask for too much nor too little. It's hard to not ask for the whole amount. But they have an equation. I think that we can administer around 30 units in the timeline given, which is, I think it's around up to 4 years that you have to have all of the home rehabilitations completed. I think that our current staff, maybe with a little bit of extra help, can probably get 30 units done, and that's 60,000 per unit, 1.8 million, and then 15% admin on top of that. So I think it was around $2.1 million is what we would be requesting.
It's good being needy, not greedy.
That's right.
Really. You put yourself in the top, you're not going to.
We would be then competing with Chicago and Bolingbrook and Bloomington. We're not gonna.
But then if you justify it with what you just said, that's good proposal.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Teague?
Yes.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries.
11D is a resolution amending the contract for the bid 672 pump station improvements. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Williams?
Yes.
York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Wands?
Yes.
Bouchard?
Yes.
O'Kane?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Hoare?
Yes.
Streebing?
Yes.
Pickering?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries.
11E is an ordinance approving the purchase of real estate addressed 937 and 939 Robinson Street for community improvement. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. This is for the Kirshner project. As a reminder, the final two properties. Is there any discussion or debate?
I think it was too much myself, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I
just think it's too much.
I understand. I thought so too. And then I tried to look for replacement houses.
Yeah, okay.
And
Never mind. I'm just.
any further discussion
And
or debate?
they have been tearing down houses along
Yeah.
Gilbert.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fire department was there. I don't know if they're gonna do a little practice burn.
No, just training. Not because the burning we have to get EPA approval. So
Yeah, oh, come on. Less waste. Yeah.
roll call vote, please.
Alderman York?
Yes.
Cooper?
Yes.
Butler?
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Wands,
Yes.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane,
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Poor,
Yes.
Streebing,
No.
Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
13 yes.
13 yes, the motion carries.
11F is an ordinance approving the acceptance of right-of-way for the Ferndale Avenue roadway improvements. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Cooper,
Yes.
Butler,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Wands,
Yes.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane,
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Poor,
Yes.
Streebing,
Yes.
Pickering,
Yes.
Ludwig,
Yes.
Teague. Yes. Williams.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries.
11G is an ordinance granting easement to the Danville Development LLC, a New York corporation, and their affiliated companies. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Yes, Alderman Cooper.
What are we doing here? I'm not familiar with this one.
Hood Causeway.
So basically, we're granting an easement to the company that operates the casino. They have a stormwater discharge that enters the pond there. It's basically to the east of their property, so it's on city property. We have approved the plans and given them right-of-way permits and things that allow them to construct, but we need to memorialize the agreement that allows them right to maintain and operate that. This easement also covers the electric supply and the existence of the fountain out in the pond. So that's essentially what it is. And I think you all probably received the email just with a minor update saying that, we've got final revisions to make still, so.
Alderman Cooper's.
Yeah.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Butler,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Wands.
Yes.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane,
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Poor,
Yes.
Streebing.
Yes.
Pickering.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Teague. Yes. Williams.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries.
11H is a resolution authorizing execution and amendment of the Downstate Operating Assistance Grant Agreement. Move to dispense reading, ask for your approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Wands.
Yes.
Bouchard,
Yes.
O'Kane.
Yes.
Iverson.
Yes.
Poor,
Yes.
Streebing.
Yes.
Pickering.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
Teague. Yes. Williams.
Yes.
York.
Yes.
Cooper.
Yes.
Butler.
Yes.
14 yes.
14 yes, the motion carries.
11L, items of information. Director Carpenter.
I'd just like to make the council aware that last Friday I received an email from IEMA stating that the state was going to attempt to get disaster relief fund from the federal government for us. We had to compile some numbers for equipment usage, our contract usage, and then they would pay for overtime, not straight time for all the employees, but overtime. That was actually due today. We got that sent to them. Our total number was right at $270,000, but that is not going to include the work we are still doing this week and next week as well. So there is hope that we will perhaps get refunded some of this. As far as the pickup of everything goes, we've gotten into what we think are our last two areas to do. If we make good progress on them, we will not need to work Friday, but by Thursday evening, we will put out a press release stating that we were looking on doing our final pickups the 2 weeks following for yard waste days only. And we would, of course, include a map of the yard waste zones because we realize that the majority of the city does not participate in the yard waste program. And at that time, we will also shut down the free usage of the yard waste site for everyone. That's all I've got at this moment. Dave does have a few things, and I believe Sam does as well, about a sewer update.
Yeah, so timeliness, this was not planned, I promise, okay? But we do have an emergency sewer repair that's happening. I'll let Sam explain that. Him and Eric have kind of taken the lead on it over operations because of the size of sanitary sewer repairs and storm that are kind of combined that we have. And then also wanted to make you guys aware of another emergency costs. Yet another traffic signal cabinet was hit at Bowman and Williams here recently. This will go through insurance, however, it's the same thing where we do have to front all the money. And then IDOT also, I think it's 50% match, but we have to front all the money, which is about $30,000, and then it'll be replenished afterwards. But I just know per purchasing policy, we need to make you guys aware of that. And then the sewer repair that Sam can go further into.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, our engineering technician was doing some routine mapping activities by Mercier Manor, manhole south of the building there. Basically, there's an old corrugated metal storm sewer that goes through the side of a sanitary sewer manhole, has completely corroded. Investigating that further, we realized that investigating sanitary sewers, there's a hole in a manhole, and essentially there's probably a 5 to 8 foot diameter by an equal amount deep hole that somehow didn't collapse yet, where people had been walking on a regular basis. We closed that off. We have a company lining the sanitary sewer to repair it first. That sanitary sewer goes actually completely under Mercier Manor, dead center of the building, in an old alley that they built over. So I'm not making this up. This is, yeah. But anyway, so that is being lined, I believe, this week or this Thursday. So yeah, 2 days from now, that should be getting lined. We then have another contractor that has to come in and we have to actually reroute the storm sewer to get it out of the sanitary sewer manhole. So we have to put in a new storm manhole and then 2 other storm manholes and replace a bunch of pipe in the alley so that we're, code compliant basically with this. And certainly we don't, we run into an issue like that, and you could have sanitary sewer gas backing up into storm sewers and just all kinds of issues, that, not to mention flood water getting down into the sanitary sewer, things like that. So I think just the lining cost is a little over $20,000 to do that, and then we're guessing $50,000 to $75,000 on the other work. So, but that's a guess. So it's a moving target, and we will be coming back to you with resolutions supporting the payment for these activities, basically in the future. So, all right.
I have a couple questions for Sam. One, there's still a house standing on Fairchild from the Garfield project. What is the status on that?
That's actually the pool house. That's going to be. No, I'm just kidding. That one, we secured ownership of it a little later, and we're waiting on asbestos abatement. Okay. So we will be going back to it.
And then my next question is, there seems to be some pending repair on Fairchild just west of the overpass. Yep. There's cover in the middle of the street.
Yep. Yeah, there's, we believe there's some kind of not a drastic sinkhole. We have done some preliminary investigation, and it's plated off for now, but we will have to dig that up. We believe that the storm sewer connection to the manhole that was installed as part of the Fairchild project is leaking and taking sand and other earth materials with it. So nothing like digging up what you built 10 years later. That's never fun, but pending. That's on hold, I think, because of just tree crew. Everybody's going crazy on tree removal right now. So
It's not a super high emergency job at the moment. We should be on it next week at some point.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, let me ask you this. How soon are you gonna get the one company moved out to Dellstorm? Because I still see them doing business there.
At Dines?
Dines.
Yeah, so we are still.
The problem with where they want equipment, where the electric's supposed to go before they.
The problem was getting an inventory of the equipment that has to be moved from them, and basically we have to have an electrical engineer draw up all the electrical modifications to power that equipment. So we finally have that information. We are working with the architect is putting together the plans to reflect, their mock layouts and all their other stuff. So certainly we're not on the time frame that we wanted to be there, but we're at least in a position where it's not going to it doesn't affect the pool project. It will affect the park project. So we're still moving forward, but it's going to be hopefully within the next couple of months, we're coming to you with I guess what we call maybe not a redevelopment, some kind of an agreement formalizing the Dines move. We just have to have all of the scope of the improvements worked out and settled on between the two parties.
Does this mean you're gonna have to look at remediation on any ground there as well because of?
Oh, at the current Dines facility?
Yeah.
No, we've already tested that. Okay. So that's been clear. That was part of our initial scope. So demolition, we should be clear as far as no soil remediation or anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Sam, I saw also there's some new concrete there south of the Bull.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to dig for sewer, water.
Yeah, they're working on the, don't remember the form, basically the treatment building for the pool, digging foundations for that, digging the sewer line connections to sanitary sewers and storm drains for decks and things like that. So right now they're working on the underground elements of that, and within the coming month, hopefully we'll see things start to migrate out of the ground so that you can start to see the progress.
Sam, was that a scheduled repair on the middle of Main Street by Bailey?
Oh, that's actually, so that's a storm sewer connection from the Kenneth Bailey Academy that's part of the school district's project at that facility.
Pretty big hole.
It is a very big hole, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, I think that concludes our report.
Thank you, Chairman Porter. This time,
I had a question.
Oh, okay.
I'd rather do it here than I would the other items of information. I've been getting asked quite a few questions on what's going across Walmart there. What's going on with that project? Is it dead or what?
I don't think we can, the proposed building there is True Grit Fitness. We, as people know, that project kind of started a while ago. There are
without permits.
There are no issued building permits on it. We're currently waiting on basically site plans that meet city requirements so that we can review them and provide comments and work towards ensuring that they're meeting city ordinances there. So right now the ball's in their court from our perspective to provide those. I know they've provided building plans. I think we have reviewed those. Those have just been on hold for permit issue because they didn't have appropriate land disturbance permits with the state or anything with us as well. So
there's no building permits with the city of Danville.
That's correct.
And so have we presented them any plans of the requirements that they should get?
Yes, we've presented them. I couldn't tell you when we started. I think
multiple times, Mr.
The discussion started last summer on that project. I know that our department has provided those numerous times. I can't speak to, what their process is, but certainly nothing that's been built there, is permitted to this point, and certainly has caused us some concern that they would be able to meet city ordinances given that they started without a full design. So.
Yeah, because I just hate to see it. It cringes me as a contractor there to see those trusses there just laying on the ground, collecting moisture and stuff there.
Right.
It's been there a while.
Yep. No, for sure. I think it makes us all cringe. I think that I'm just speaking from my own, I really look forward to what that site could be for the community when it's done. I think it's going to be a great asset. I hope they do move forward with it and get it completed. And we certainly want to, work with them, but there are extenuating circumstances and possibly motivations. I don't know for sure.
So, you got the project started. Is it a finable offense?
I would say, I don't know. I would say yes, it is finable. There's probably numerous things that we could be doing. And I think if you all want to go down that road, that's certainly something we would do, given the circumstances and current litigation that's going on around stuff like that. We haven't pushed real hard, on that just to be honest, we want to keep spending our time pushing for good things, not fighting bad, because in the end, we want that project built. And that's what we want to be working with the people that are building it and the future owner, and we're trying to put our efforts into making sure that happens. But certainly, yes, it is a finable offense.
So this future owner is sort of getting hosed on the whole deal.
Not by us, but yes, absolutely.
I wanted some type of explanation, but I mean, yeah, if all that's going on, I understand, but I feel sorry for that.
We do too. We do too. The future owners, one of them is a good childhood friend. My dad and her dad were good friends. We spent time with them for family outings, holidays. They're good people.
It lives right by there.
And so to see them being treated like this is terrible.
Just seems like minor things that can be taken care of.
Be little drainage
If people would choose, Alderman Cooper, one of the things that we always do here at the city is whenever anyone approaches us with a project, the first thing we tell them to do is please get the inspectors in there with you to take a look at things, to do an assessment. That way they know what's going. We don't, you're 6 months into the project and now we're telling you have to do $150,000 of work. We don't operate like that. So we meet with people ahead of time and tell them this is what you have to do. But unfortunately, some people choose to take their own separate initiative and just go about business and do what they wish and without any cooperation or foresight. And sometimes even when we've told them very expressly what needs done, still it doesn't happen.
Just sort of surprised me, no permits were pulled for it. That's
There were submissions. There has been nothing approved at this point. So that's the holdup is a lack of documents that are designed by professional engineers and other people that meet our standards. So
is there a possibility that a alderman can acquire the requirements from us to just to look at it to see what needs to be done
so all the
project?
All the requirements are in city ordinances that govern these things. Every project is extremely different as far as which ordinances apply, and certainly it's very difficult for city staff to provide, okay, here's all the requirements that you meet, because they could change one decision and that affect, now you've got a whole different section of, rules that apply or guidelines that apply or whatever. There's just too many moving parts. And that's where professional engineers and architects and things like that are part of their team traditionally come in and bridge the gap. They work with us to figure out how to meet their goals and meet our ordinances and do that. And there are those teams involved in this project, but as far as what their contractual obligations are and how they work together, that's not up for us. We are not able to dictate how that relationship works. So we've given them general guidelines and point them to the ordinances that are gonna say this is what your plans have to contain. And at this point, we're not at a point where we can provide really constructive feedback because those plans aren't close enough for us to do that. So.
Yeah, I've also heard Sam, that there had to be a soil test. I mean, out of all those houses that's been built around in that area. So, my question is that do all the contractors have to get a soil test to build up in that area? I've never seen a gas station or anything in that area. It was a farm across the street there,
Right.
Except for up at Walmart.
I mean, it's gonna depend on what they're doing and whether they need a soil test for structural reasons or stormwater management. And the builder is very familiar with that area. He actually built the last 2 phases of that subdivision there, so I would.
We aren't requiring any kind of environmental testing for this.
No, I mean
we aren't requiring them to do any kind of soil testing or anything like this. There's a land disturbance permit that they have to apply for with the state of Illinois because they're developing more than an acre of land. It creates runoff. And because of that, with the Route 1 being right there and that being state land that's all adjacent to it, they have to meet certain requirements with the state of Illinois in terms of land disturbance. But we're not making them do any kind of environmental testing or EPA testing.
Right. It has been federal law since, I believe, 1993 that any construction site that disturbs more than 1 acre has to file a permit for land disturbance with whoever the federal EPA's designated agency is, which is the Illinois EPA in Illinois. That's common practice throughout. The lack of that permit was the big holdup on issuing any permits early on this thing, and then we just don't have documentation yet to move forward on it comfortably. So as you could understand, if we have to get the site has to be graded in a certain way so that it doesn't negatively impact off-site people with stormwater problems or site issues or access or affect their land rights or setbacks or any of this stuff. It's really hard for us to issue partial permits without knowing that they have a full plan that will make that doable. So that's really where we're at, is we are not comfortable issuing those even partial permits because we're not sure that they can meet the remaining ordinances. And it's like, will they ever go back and finish it, I guess is the thing. So.
And so with your expertise at the end, as far as when you say water runoff, I kind of noticed a ravine there in the front there to where that it has a big old drainage, like a little, drive go across to where it goes on back down to the creek. And so it's just a matter of, like the other homes, buildings you do, if for say one drain to kind of lead out to that drainage area.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna vary. That it's up to the site designer, the professional engineer that's stamping the plans to determine the drainage plan and to make that all work. And that's not something that, has met our approval or been presented complete enough for us to say that it does meet it at this point. And I don't know when that subdivision was built, but I don't know that I'm not sure that it was built per city ordinance at the time it was built. As far as stormwater management, they did not do it. They had a pretty healthy history of just waiving a lot of those requirements for a long time. And we will deal with the consequences of that like we have in many old ones. So
probably 3 or 4 homes up there right across from it that still aren't in the city.
Right. Yeah. The first phase is not in the city at all.
Yeah.
And then, it's an interesting history.
From Sunset Funeral Home to the second part of Devonshire is not city.
Yeah.
Roads were never constructed.
Yeah. If you want, the city's the fancy part. It's got sidewalks and street lights. So.
Alderman, you have to understand too that a lot of times when you're building a new place, your square footage on your roof depends how much water flow comes off, which is going to affect the people around the neighborhood or whatever else as well. I had a guy out here in the Heights one year, and what he had to do to make everything right was combine 3 pieces of property into one because he wanted to put up a new 2-car garage. With all the property put together, the square footage and everything was fine for the water runoff. Mm-hmm. The way it was blocked up, he couldn't have done it. Could never have done it. It's just the way the rules and the ordinance have been written.
Yep.
Alderman Butler, do you have any further questions, sir?
No. Okay. Chairman. No, it looks like everybody's finished, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chairman Ford. At this time, we'll receive our Public Services Committee report. Chairman Streebing.
Looks like 12A, we got the city clerk's report. I'll need a motion in a second to approve the license.
So move.
Second.
I got a motion in a second. Is there any questions on any of the license? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Items of information, we will meet next week.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Right here at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I will turn it over for 13A, items of information about our budget and levy schedule to our comptroller, Essie.
Good evening. In your packet, you have our budget and tax levy schedule, the 2023 tax year levy and 24-25 budget. This gives you a rough idea of when the mayor and I will be meeting with the various division and department heads to discuss our budget. If I'm not in a budget meeting in August and September, I'm preparing the Excel sheet for the budget meeting and working on the capital plan. It is budget season. So if you have any specific questions about funds leading up to that, you're welcome to reach out to me. Otherwise, you'll see the first presentation is mid-October, usually the second council meeting in October. Then also on the agenda, you see every time that I'm going to be bringing the budget to you for review and open questions at city council or the committee meetings. You are welcome to come and meet with me one-on-one. We can go page by page if you like, of every single question that you have, or you can bring your comments and questions to the public meetings. I will only go through a PowerPoint presentation one time, and that's that first meeting. Otherwise, if you have questions, you'll bring them up. The schedule is set by state statute, so we have deadlines we have to meet. We have to have certain items on public display so many days ahead of the public hearing, so many days ahead of adoption, so it's a pretty tight schedule. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those at this time.
Any questions for the comptroller?
No.
All right, thank you. Thank you, comptroller. You'll be glad to know we do not have need of closed session this evening.
Oh, not even 20 minutes.
I'm sorry, I should have asked, are there any other items of information for the good of the cause?
I have one.
Yes.
I just want to ask that everybody keep me in their prayers. I will be leaving Saturday, heading to Florida for spinal surgery, so I'll be out for a while. Just send one up for me if you don't mind.
Absolutely, we will. Chairman Poor.
Lincoln Park Historic District Neighborhood Association will be meeting Thursday at 7 at Friendly Town, I think. I'm not sure if it's.
It's, the park's open.
Park's open. Okay.
Park's open?
Is Friendly Town building open? The roof, the integrity of the roof.
Okay, so we'll have to find out where we're meeting.
I'll ask Madam President to
Okay,
there you go. They'll know.
I think she may have texted or sent out an.
I think she has.
I've got something if I could.
Yes, Chairman.
As of next week, we've been doing this out to Grotto for probably 40-some years or more. Ambucks will be out for the next 2 weeks. The first week, we have the young kids, and we got about 45 to 50 of them. The second week, we have the older kids, and there's 45 to 50 of them. They meet and greet. They stay out there usually on the whole day on Wednesdays. And I've got people from the boat club as well as people from the Grotto. We take all 45 or all 50, whatever we've got, we take them all for boat rides on Wednesday morning. Then they eat lunch there and they stay for the 2 weeks. So more or less, the grounds up from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock at night is theirs. So we've enjoyed it for the last 40-some years. So anybody wants to come out and help, anybody wants to come out and watch, anybody wants to come out and take a boat ride, come on out. We'll utilize you. We'll use your help. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, Alderman Butler.
Oh, yes, I would like to thank, Carl and his crew once again, and, so they finally got in front of my house today. They came probably about a day early. I was still doing some cutting on some other folks' lots around there, trying to help them out, and I hope I didn't burn up my saw, but, my blade stopped turning, so I'm going to tear it apart. But I really appreciate it, and, those guys were working hard. And got to talking with one of the fellows there too about the length of time that it's going to take. I mean, I kind of surveyed my land around in my areas, and it's going to take a little while longer there for our guys to really, be sufficient and do their job, probably way into August. And I'm hoping that the availability will still be for us to bring the stuff if our guys decide to stop. I'm sure that that we know that there's fresh tree cutting there, because by now we've done set the stuff out and the leaves and limbs and stuff is brown, and so if we see some new limbs, it's still green, and so I don't know if you pass it up or what, but
Alderman Butler, they still need to call them.
Appreciate it.
They need to call Public Works 431-2288 to let them
to
know.
come pick it up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Well, I seen one today come down Logan Avenue. The tree had been snapped, and big catalpa tree, and it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's covering their driveway, and it just come down in this wind we
there's
had
several,
yesterday. So, and it's all green.
Oh, okay.
So they're still coming down. Believe me.
Right. Okay. Cool.
You're still coming down?
Yeah, as long as I know the information there, so I can tell the people there when they stop me and question me.
Yes, sir. Alderman Pritchard.
Yeah, the new video that's just released to the department heads, very impressive. I really enjoyed it. Whoever put that together did an excellent job.
Thanks. That was Ashton and Center Seat Productions. So
What channel is that on?
it's in your email and on the website too.
They're represented by Hollywood, you know.
All right.
Was the chief
All
know
right,
we're getting
having-
their fire truck?
Sir.
Chief know when we're getting their fire truck?
It's been shipped up to Pennsylvania, so it's there now, getting some final touches on it today. They just sent out some more parts that we need to have it put on it today, so we're still hoping by the end of the month.
Okay, thank you.
The chief, I saw all you guys on the corner of, what was it, Townsend, not Townsend?
Yeah, I think.
Was it Townsend?
Yeah, Townsend.
That last house standing there, but just doing a walkthrough, looking and training?
No, we have a guy from the Illinois Fire Service Institute this week teaching hose advancement and search and rescue in the house. They're on the end. Yeah.
Having satisfied the agenda, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.